Hey guys, Javel here. So this is gonna be the first in a series of videos where I talked about how to fight each class as a balance and rest of hybrid druid. There are several different specs you can play with, some have slightly different playstyle than the others, but I'll try to cover everything you need to know depending on which talents you choose to play with. The biggest difference is whether you have feral charge or not. I used to not feel a very strong need to have feral charge in world PvP, since you're strongest at range and you don't really want to go close to your opponents. But it's a nice interrupt for healers sometimes for that extra last push, and it's a nice tool in 1vx situations. Or you can use it to create a gap from a melee by charging a mob nearby. But I'm gonna talk about fighting each class with or without feral charge, so don't worry. I'll start by talking about rogues. So rogues can either be really easy or super hard, depending on the skill level of the rogue and their spec. I guess that's true for most classes, but rogues can be ridiculously hard to beat if they're played well. In general, the main abilities you want to play around are blind, sprint, vanish, evasion, kidney shot, and gouge. You can beat like 80% of rogues by just playing around their sprint alone. If you can outrange the rogue after he used 2 sprints, that's often a situation you can't lose from. At least not in open world. In duels, you can get yourself in a bad spot with a limited range. A tip to prevent this is by walking at the edge of the duel area before it starts. This way you can kite towards the flag and get a lot of extra space to run in. Some general tips against rogues are abolish poison to remove blind. This is a common move for druids. Just keep abolish up when the rogue is getting in range to blind. And if the rogue is close enough to attack you before the blind is removed, you should probably just eat the blind and go bear form instead to prevent getting bursted down in caster form. Feral charging a rogue does also often lead to blind or gouge. I've had best success using Skull of Impending Doom before or during a feral charge, but Abolish can work as well if you have it up before the charge. That way you don't need to exit farm when you get in range of the rogue. Tip number 2 is turn away from gouge. I'm bad at this myself, but gouge is only usable in front of the target. So turning your back towards the rogue can keep them from gouging you. 3. Trinketing Kidney instead of Cheap Shot. So Trinketing Kidney Shot wastes their combo points they saved up during the Cheap Shot. Be careful about doing this too fast, as good rogues might blind you to cover the trinket. Try to wait a bit until the rogue locks his first global cooldown after the kidney. 4. Refresh Fairy Fire often. Kidney shot into gouge, into blind, into second blind, into gouge is 37 seconds of CC if the rogue executes this perfectly, meaning they will be able to re-stealth if Fairy Fire falls off, which it might. 37 seconds is a lot. They often don't even need the full chain, but keeping FF fresh requires them to have more CDs. 5. Track their energy and combo points. If you need to exit bear form to heal, root, nade, or other things, it's best to do that when the rogue has spent his energy and a global cooldown. That's typically after a backstab, for example. 6. Apply pressure during bark skin. You should treat bark skin like a temporary moonkin or bear form. It reduces the physical damage you take by a slightly lower amount than moonkin and bear does, but you gain a window to deal damage or heal without being stuck in farm, where you'd probably otherwise just do nothing but stall until your cooldowns are back up. Against a rogue in duels, it's safest for you to stay in bear form and let the rogue have the opener. This is how it's usually done. However, if you want to play it risky, you can go cat form and try to get a pounce on them. Or alternately, just fairy fire into a Skull of Impending Doom. Keep in mind that it's harder for you to pounce him than it is for him to cheap shot you, and the punish for failing cat opener is most likely just an instant loss. Your main strategy against rogues will be getting out of their melee and blind range to prowl and create a large gap. I found the most reliable way to do this is by using Tidal Charm, since it can't be dodged with their evasion. The counter to this is them using Tidal Charm themselves after your Tidal Charm has ended, and then they catch up to you. You can avoid that by covering your own Tidal Charm with a nade as you're running away. And if you do this, then you can outrange their Tidal Charm, so they won't catch up to you. An alternate way is to trinket their kidney into a Fairy plus a skull. This counters both Vanish, Blind, and Gouge on the same global cooldown, which is important in high skill matches. If you decide to trinket into only Abolish, a good rogue will Vanish or even just Gouge you before the Abolish ticks. If you trinket into Fairy, then the rogue will blind you. So the best way is to use Skull at the same time as Fairy to counter both. Do this plus Bark Skin as you run away and create a small gap. If you're fast enough, you can get out of their melee range and possibly re-stealth if the rogue chooses not to blind into your skull, which might actually be the correct play on their end. If the rogue was quick enough on sprint, however, and you didn't actually get out of melee range, you might want to start replacing Skull with an Abolish, dot them up, rejuve yourself, and go into bear form. Kidney Shot has a 20-second cooldown, so as long as you can counter Blind and Gouge, you get some time to deal damage before you need to shift back into bear. It's important to put pressure on the rogue, as you might get into a spot where just killing him is your best out. Keep in mind the rogue might prep kidney, which is what a good rogue will probably do. If you think the rogue is good enough to do that, it's safer to get back into bear form for the duration of the kidney. Noticing mistakes by the rogue can give you an upper hand if you know how to punish them. For example, bashing them if they don't use evasion on the opener, or not playing around blind or gouge if they put bleeds up on you, and so on. Against rogues that garret or rapture you, you might want to exit form into Barkskin and just start dotting them up, as all their CC but kidney will break on damage. Good items for you to use against a rogue are Tidal Charm, PvP Insignia, Gnomish Cloaking Device, Arena Grandmaster, Sandalera and Hero Charm, Sandalera and Hero Badge, Gnomish Netomatic Projector, Skull of Impending Doom, Furbolg Medicine Pouch, Leather Gear, Rocket Helm, Rocket Boots, and Mark of the Dragon Lord. Good items a rogue might have equipped against you are Tidal Charm, Renatakus Charm of Trickery, Death Ray, Nifty Stopwatch, Arena Grandmaster, Badge of the Swarm Guard, any attack power or damage boosting trinket, Rocket Helm, Rocket Boots, Swift Boots, Skull of Impending Doom, Furbolg Medicine Pouch, or Spider Belt. It's worth noting that their PvP insignia is useless against you, as it does not remove stun or root. It is therefore very strong to stun a rogue. The only way to break it is with Living Action Potion, which is released in CG patch. As there will likely be several combat drops during your fight with a rogue, you should be aware that they might swap trinkets and gear around. This is something you should do as well, as trinkets can give you a huge advantage on their own. An example of this would be swapping out your Tidal Charm for a Gnomish Cloaking Device when you're proud, waiting for a rogue's sprint to run out. In situations where you don't have Skull or Tidal equipped, your trinket is on CD or etc., you will have to judge if you can outlast the evasion or not. Sometimes you're in a bad spot and have to try and get behind the rogue somehow to bash them, since players can't dodge from behind. It might just be better to sit in bear form though and use frenzied regeneration. Typically that can be good if you're already high health at the start of a stun lock and have nature swiftness ready. If you have Rocket Helm, that's a good way to create a gap as well, but be careful not to waste it when they're using Skull of Impending Doom. Try to use it when you're close to the rogue as well, as it gives them less time to react with Vanish or Skull. You should apply pressure while guiding them in the form of dots when you find the time to. It might force them to health path instead of swiftness path, which could potentially be a gap closer. Other gap closers to consider are Rocket Helm, Nade, Magic Dust, Rocket Boots, Nifty Stopwatch, or Swift Boots. Have your Scallop and Mending Doom ready to break CCs like Nade, Dust, or Helm. If you see a rogue is wearing Rocket Boots, you should try to create a large gap with Travel Form or Dash, and prowl like you would play around a sprint. You could possibly use Rocket Boots yourself. It allows you to cast while having the speed of your Travel Form, although it's risky. If the boots malfunction, you're often just dead. I used the boots a lot in open world as a substitute for the PvP set bonus before I got a hold of it. There are several specs you can encounter. Prep Cold Blood or Prep Imp Sprint will be the toughest ones to beat. Cold Blood Avist can burst you down from 50% HP in a single hit out of bear form or without spark skin. Imp Sprint allows the rogue to break your roots with Sprint in addition to Vanish. With Imp Sprint spec, they can also silence you with Kick, preventing you from getting an S off. It's more common to see prep Cold Blood rogues, but very good rogue seems to prefer Imp Sprint plus Kick. Against Druids at least. The last spec you might meet is Deep Combat Rogues. It's not really a PvP spec since it doesn't have prep, so typically these are raid spec rogue you might meet in open world. They can do a lot of damage to you if they stick, but they're generally easier to control since they only have one sprint to catch up. If you notice a rogue uses Blade Flurry or Adrenaline Rush, that should tell you that they're combat and you only need to play around one sprint, one blind, and one vanish. As for your own spec, I personally prefer 19, 11, 21 in duels, but deeper balance or resto instead of feral charge becomes better in open world where you don't really need to go close to the rogue at all. That's assuming you're kiting well and not cornering yourself. As mentioned before, you might use charge to charge a mob and get away, so they're still used in open world. Meanwhile, deeper balance allows you to pressure the rogue harder, to the point where you can Moonfire spam them down with Barkskin and good gear. Swiftman plus Vengeance down in the balance tree is probably the overall strongest spec to deal with rogues in World PvP though. And that's the end of the video. I think I covered most of the core knowledge you need to beat the sneaky boys reliably. Tell me in the comments if there's anything you feel like I should have mentioned and I'll add it to the description. Make sure you check the description though before posting so we avoid duplicates. And which class would you like me to do next? I'm gonna cover all of them eventually, but each video takes a lot of time to make, so tell me which order you would like to see me do the rest of them. Alright, thanks for watching and see ya!